How does a 39-year-old man who's jacked, tatted up with a shaved head, a beard, earrings, end up being sought after for women's weight loss? What's up, Active Lifers? Welcome back to the Active Life Podcast. I'm Dr. Sean Pastuch. I'm your host. On today's podcast, I'm joined by my friend, Aram Grigorian. He is the host of the Real Coaches Summit that I will be speaking at in Las Vegas next year in March. And he is the most transparent, real, authentic, value-add person that you're going to be able to find. On today's podcast, we talk about his upbringing, how he came to be a person who is helping women to lose weight. And we even get into how he acquires each of his clients, what it means to have them coming to him in the DM, because it's not people coming in and saying, I want to work with you, and then he just takes their money. You're going to get a lot of value out of this podcast. When you do, 5-star rating, write us that review, share it with a friend. That's how the show grows. And that's what we're looking to do, bring this value to more people. Let's get you to the show. Aram Grigorian, welcome to the Active Life Podcast, my friend.
I appreciate you having me, sir. It's an honor and a privilege.
I'm excited to have you. You know, we first got connected when I came and spoke on your show. And since then, we've been in contact fairly frequently. I enjoy the conversation. I enjoy following you on Instagram. It's the only social media I'm really any kind of savvy at. And
Same.
Everything about you since the first interaction has come across as that's Aram. There is no other Aram. There is no other version that he's hiding. He's giving away everything he knows how to give away. He's just trying to do good things for people. And there's been no sign of anything different than that. So I appreciate that.
I don't know any other way to do it. And I don't know why you would do it any other way.
Yeah, because you could probably make a bunch of money really quick. Not for a long time, doing it a different way. But I guess that would be the impetus.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't tie my fulfillment to dollars and cents. Like, obviously my life would be a hell of a lot easier if I had more of it.
Would it?
The first deposit actually is due in 7 days for the event. And it was, they usually do it in like $20,000 increments. And I asked them to split it into tens because that's what my credit card limits can bite off and chew. And she's like, yeah, no problem. I'm sure the events that this place must host are probably, $1 million, $2 million events where my little rinky dink thing, I'm sitting there trying to nickel and dime them for 10 grand credit card deposits where they're probably getting wires for $4 or $5 million bucks. But they work with me and it's been cool, but it's just, I never grew up around money. And then I was exposed to a lot of it in Greenwich, Connecticut when I worked there. I was walking into these $20-30 million mansions and half my clients were big wigs at XYZ hedge fund. And it just never did anything for me. It didn't jazz me up. It didn't excite me. It was like, oh, cool. You have 17 Porsches in a garage that you've never walked into. These people still were unhealthy. They still weren't happy. And I'm like, okay, clearly money isn't the answer to any of these problems. So what is? And that's kind of where like the internal struggle is, right?
Well, the event you're talking about is the Real Coaches Summit, which I have the great privilege of speaking at. And I really am. I've told so many people who've followed me on Instagram as a result of you posting and saying I'll be there. Not just me, but the speakers. They've reached out and told me, they've started to follow my account. And I reach out to them. I say, how'd you find me? They say, oh, I saw you're speaking at the Real Coaches Summit. I'm like, that's so cool. Thank you for following my account. And I tell them all this. I'm like, I really am so looking forward to that event because I'm the guy who, when I'm speaking at your event, regardless of your event, I'm in the audience when I'm not speaking because I want to be immersed in it. I want to meet the people who are there. I want to go to the dinner that they're all eating at and just conversating at in between the talks. I want to go out wherever they're going out. I want to be a guest who can bring value to other people and get value, frankly, from other people in the audience who just haven't been able to break through and let people know how smart they are. So I'm genuinely excited to come be at the Real Coaches Summit next year in Las Vegas. And we'll get to that at the end. I do want to talk about that, but I want to go back a step. The first question I wanted to ask you, and I feel like you started to answer it already, and it was interesting, and I really want to go back to that Greenwich, Connecticut days, is how does a 39-year-old guy who's jacked, tatted up, bearded, and bald, end up working with women who wants to lose weight? Like you're like the women's weight loss whisperer. I don't understand how that paradox came to be.
I think it starts with having a very matriarchal upbringing. Like my mom was just a very powerful figure in my life. Like I respected my father and I liked him, and we didn't get along always. And now that he's in his late 70s, like him and I are slightly a bit closer now, but we still like, I don't look at him as somebody who's an educator. I don't look at him as somebody who inspires me. He doesn't really do much for me outside of just probably donating sperm and then being there for a while. Mm-hmm. Whereas my mother has been monumental in every ounce of my transformation as an adult, and all of my downs, all of my highs. She was there for every step of the way. Like when I was having a drug problem in my 20s, she was the one who was like, cool, easy solution, delete all the dealers that you know and don't talk to them again, or stop drinking as much as you do, or don't go out as often as you do. Not like yelling at me or judging me or checking me into rehab. She was just like, let's just be reasonable about this. You don't have a problem. You like to party. Stop fucking partying and focus on something else. And that's just how she's always been. She's a solutions-based person. You give her a problem, and she's had cancer twice. She had half her thyroid removed. She got type 2 diabetes. She doesn't see problems. She just sees like answers, like, how am I going to work my way out of this thing? And that's really all fat loss is. And I think the problem is women have been being sold this bill of goods for decades, that they're broken and they're shattered and their metabolism sucks, and perimenopause is going to put you on your ass, and then you're going to be useless as a human being, as opposed to like giving them messages of empowerment and you are capable and you can get through this. And that's the type of way that I was brought up, and that's how I coach people, because I can resonate with their problems because I've had plenty of my own.
That's beautiful. Have you ever told your mom how much of an influence she's been on you?
Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, so I communicate much better in English than I do in Russian. Russian is my native language, but my mom's English is good, but it's not like us good. It's good enough to get her around CVS, and it's good enough to get her through TJ Maxx to buy something, but it's not deep linguistics to where she can understand some of the nuances about what I talk about, what I even do for work. Like she didn't come to the event last year because she was having some health problems. So it's always been very difficult for me to express to my mother how my coaching business has been woven by her message. I tell her in the simplest way possible, and I think she sees it now, and especially she sees just like the impact I have, and she sees my stuff on Instagram. She doesn't really know how to interact with any of it. She kind of just likes it, or she sees it on Facebook. She doesn't, I'm sure she's not reading it or understanding or comprehending much of it, but she tries. But yeah, it's hard because it's just not her native language, and she doesn't understand the depth of what I'm trying to really get out there.
I hope she's at the event in April.
I do too. I'm praying to anybody who will listen at this point that she has a cleaner bill of health this year, because last year she had a pacemaker put in December, and she was restricted to travel for like 4 or 5 months. Mm-hmm. So hopefully by this year that will be a no longer issue, because she did just come to California. So she did just come see my new place. So we did see her. She seems fine. I mean, listen, she's 76. She's had a whole shitload of problems, and she hasn't been the picture of health. So at this point, it's just, you're just hoping for the best.
Is your father Armenian?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So he's Armenian, moved from Armenia at 18 to Russia because he just couldn't stand being at home anymore, living with his dad, because his dad was his enemy, just like my dad was my enemy growing up. Funny how that works, right? And he became a cop like immediately. So he was a cop for 20 some odd years, but and in Russia, if you were think about it, he was a cop in communist Russia, which essentially just made him be in the mob.
Right.
Part of the biggest Soviet socialist mafia in the world. And and that's just how they grew up. Like my father didn't have a very typical life. My mother was a pharmacy tech coming out of school, and back in the day in Russia, when you wanted to get condoms, you had to go to a pharmacy to get condoms. And that's how my father and my mother met. So my father was getting around a lot as a young officer, and a lot of pretty little ladies around him. And he was constantly in the store. At least he was being safe, which I'll give him credit for.
Right. Maybe that's what she saw in him.
I mean, he hit on her incessantly, my mom said, for like 5 years straight. She just kept knocking him down. And finally, I guess she had a weak moment, went out with him a couple times, and they never got officially married until he left in 89, because they just didn't decide to go through the paperwork of it. And then when we left in September of '89, my father went to some government official, greased him something, and got a marriage license that day so he could make it official upon entering here.
So you spent 6 years in communist Russia before you moved to the U.S.
I can't say I remember much of it.
Right.
I kind of hear about myself secondhand from my parents, like, and even just like the immigration process of like leaving Russia, going to Vienna, Austria for 2 weeks, because you had to get quarantined because we were leaving on religious asylum through a Jewish federation, which I don't know how that my father finagled that. I'm sure he paid somebody to do that.
Why,
too.
are you not Jewish?
My mom is, but in Russia, you weren't allowed to practice your religion. So you couldn't really tell people you were Jewish.
Okay.
And when my mother changed her name to my father's name, she was no longer a Jew anymore.
Right.
Because her last name is Getman.
Right. That's Jewish.
Yeah. Yeah. So in Russia, which basically meant you were a second-class citizen at that point. And my father being Armenian, he was essentially a black person.
Okay.
That's how it worked. So like I was fucked from the beginning. Like if we'd stayed in Russia, we would have had all sorts of problems.
Right. So for the benefit of the audience, when you're describing your father was basically a black person for being Armenian, your mom was a second-class citizen for being a Jew, what that means is in communist Russia during that time, you were either Russian or you were other.
Something else. Yeah.
And the last name Grigorian is very clearly not Russian. And so
very clearly Armenian. Yeah.
It's impressive he got a job as a police officer.
He couldn't get above a certain rank, so he capped out at second lieutenant.
Okay.
And he was my father was heading up massive investigations. Some of the stuff that he told me was insane. He didn't really talk about a lot of the work until much later on in life, because I think he was traumatized by a lot of it and he had no idea how to communicate that. Like my mom said, he would come home from work and just like stick his head down in the soup and wouldn't say words for 7-8 days straight.
Wow.
I mean, he was seeing bodies and walls that the government was probably renting apartments to bury.
Right.
Communist opposers. He was shipping prisoners out into the middle of nowhere because they were opposing the government. And that's just how it worked. They were just made, they said jump, he said how high. Every once in a while, he got to do something on the side. He'd get a taste of it. He'd go steal something off the back of a truck, sell it. That's how he survived.
It's so interesting because you think about, at least I do, how did people go along with it, right? Like all it would take is the cops to say no. But the thing is, you're not sure if you're the only cop who's going to say no. And if you are, then you know exactly what happens. You end up being the person who gets exiled just to go ahead and walk in Siberia by yourself until you're dead.
Yep.
That's terrifying. It's so interesting.
Yeah. That's why it's very hard for me to have a bad day.
Right.
Like
right.
I just don't understand the concept of it, because I watched my parents fight from the second they got here. Like, there were 6 jobs amongst 2 people when we were in New Haven, Connecticut. When we first settled in Connecticut was where we settled. And then that was it. It was just like fight from the moment you got here. It was fight for more jobs and more money to afford your rent. And then it was, okay, well, we can't bring this kid into a New Haven public school system where he's going to be the only kid there that is essentially Russian and white. So we got to move out of this town and go somewhere that's a little bit more upper middle class, to where the education system is better. So they moved us to Cheshire, Connecticut, which is in the middle of the state, corn-fed, upper middle class. And we were probably the poorest people in town. But I never felt like it because my parents worked their ass off, and we lived in a condo that was $250,000 a year that my parents were $250,000 that my parents couldn't afford. That we were underwater on the mortgage 3 different times, and I think we filed for bankruptcy 3 times. Which, by the way, no problem. If you file for bankruptcy, you will get it all back within 5 or 6 years. My parents' credit score is perfect now.
I bet. Is it?
Perfect. Like 800s.
Wow. Okay.
After 3 bankruptcies apiece. So you can absolutely rebound from that, no problem. So yeah, it's a very weird, odd, not uncommon story, but that's just how we grew up.
So you didn't speak English when you were here first?
I had started learning there already. My parents, my mom knew it was coming because she didn't want to be. My father would have stayed forever. My father loved it there. He was a card-carrying member of the party. He loved it. He believed in Russia. He believed in Lenin. He believed in Stalin. He believed in the mission. He liked the organization. He liked the structure. And he can operate free reign. Like, he knew how to steal and he knew how to conform.
Right.
So he was the best of both worlds. But my mother was like, there's no way that we're bringing our son up like this.
Right.
Because he's going to follow in your footsteps, and he's either going to be a criminal or he's going to be a police officer, which essentially means he's going to be a criminal.
Right.
So that's why she wanted to move here. And my brother was 13 years older than me at the time. He was 18, and he had some disabilities. He had a congenital cataract, which meant he couldn't see after 6 months of being born. And then he got his sight, 70 or so percent of his sight back after a bunch of surgeries. And then when he moved here, he got LASIK and was like 95%. But yeah, and my brother was basically a hustler his whole life too. Yeah. So it's all we ever knew.
You still friendly with your brother?
Yeah. He's 51. I'm 39. So he's always been like that older guy in my life for a while, and 2 kids, family, married, definitely went our separate ways. But, he's had his issues too with alcohol abuse and, very good dad. I can't say shit about him. I mean, the dude, he's raised 2 unbelievably great kids. Him and his wife obviously could probably be doing better, but that's, we all have our crosses to bear. And the last thing I'm ever going to do is tell my brother how to live his life when I'm 13 years younger than him. Because I grew up in a place where you respected your elders, right? You didn't if you were 20, you didn't know shit. Mm-hmm. And until you put money on the counter, you were nobody in the family. So I started making money at 13, so I had a voice early.
Doing what?
I worked on a farm. I worked on a commercial flower farm. I started at 13. I worked all the way through high school. I was probably making about $400 a week cash for a while.
Okay.
It was great. I would take about 80% of it, leave it on the table for my parents to pay bills with, and I would keep the other 20% for spending money. Mm-hmm. So I never really asked my parents for money growing up. I don't think my father really even knew I went to college. Like I went to Quinnipiac University in Hamden, Connecticut, where I took out all the loans. I put everything in my name. My mother co-signed one loan, but my father had no idea. Like in junior year, he asked me, he's like, "You're going to school, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Where?" I'm like, "Quinnipiac." Because I just worked all the time. I never bothered him about anything. I got good grades. They didn't have to micromanage me at all. But that's because it was set up that way early. Like at 9 years old, I was getting myself up off the bus, cooking myself dinner, doing my homework, cleaning the house because my parents weren't home.
Right.
They were either job number 1, 2, or 3.
We were almost classmates, man. Quinnipiac was one of the 2 Division I schools that recruited me to play baseball.
No shit.
Yeah, it was Quinnipiac and Towson. I didn't go to either.
Towson's Maryland, right?
Yeah, Baltimore.
Yeah.
I didn't end up going to either, but I considered it.
Where did you end up going?
University of Maryland.
Oh, okay. You were a Terp.
Yep. I was an angry snapping turtle, and I got cut by the baseball team 2 times.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah. The coach put his arm around me. He says, "Love your fastball, love your control, love your movement, and you can really hold runners on base. You're just not big enough." I was like, what does my size have to do with any of this? But I owe Coach Rupp credit because that was when I decided I'm going to learn what it takes to get jacked. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to make this team. And he's going to be like, "Where have you been?" And then I started going into the gym to get jacked and realized I do not want badly enough to get jacked. But I learned a lot. So I was able to start helping other people with their health and fitness journeys. And I think that had a role in the path I took.
Isn't it crazy how everybody has that like one person in their life that changed the trajectory of where they were going to go?
Well, for me, I think that was way earlier, but yes, I remember getting, Larry in the company who's on the podcast regularly. He jokes around. He's like, "If you didn't get bullied in 7th grade, none of this happens."
Yeah, I think there's that pivotal point in somebody's life to where it creates their identity that they hold on to. And obviously that identity can change throughout the life or throughout the course of your life. But I think there's something deeply rooted in the underbeing of who you are. Like the deep core of who you are as a human being never really changes.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I've been a servant my whole life. I've always either been a class clown. I was friend zoned by every chick in high school, so that was me listening to all their bullshit with their boyfriends because I wasn't getting laid.
Everyone's like, Aram gets all the girls, and you're like, yeah, it would be nice.
No, yeah, I'm hearing all their problems, which look at what it just did now. It set me up to listen to women and their problems because I literally listened to women my whole life. I listened to girls in high school. I was always the empathetic one throughout college. I dated all throughout college, so I never was able to like live that party, hook up with whatever moved lifestyle that everybody else was doing. And I didn't really become that type of a person until my 20s when I was in finance and I had some money in my pocket. And that's kind of when I started to emerge as like, oh, I actually can be this independent, masculine dude. And I thought masculinity was tied into how much money you had and how many times a week you got laid.
It's not.
I was wrong.
That's good because I'm married. And look, we sex is great. We have plenty of sex. It's just not as much as if I was a single guy with a different girl every night.
Yeah, you probably get laid more as a married man, trust me, because it's doing what I did in my 20s was exhausting.
Aram, let me live in this bubble where if I wasn't, every girl would just want me. All right? I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, listen, I'm getting better with age. I'm getting better with age. And
that's true.
Right? And I'm like, we walk by, it doesn't matter if the girl is like making out with her boyfriend. I'm like, she wants me.
Absolutely. but if you don't carry yourself like that, the world is missing out on something.
I agree.
Yeah, I think you have to walk into the room like you own it. And I think that's something that I learned later on in life without having to need to prove it to anybody.
Well, I want to hear about, because now I'm starting to put some dots together. And I hear you talk about working in finance. And now I'm starting to understand how you made relationships where you ended up in somebody's house that has 17 Porsches in a garage that they've never walked into. But take me there, because typically when people get into finance, they do not leave, right? They get into, especially somebody like you, man. And when I say somebody like you, what I mean is first generation American, right? You were born in another country. So you got the immigrant mentality, which means you're going to hustle. You're going to do everything you can to put money on the table to make sure that you guys can get by. You end up in a position where hustle is rewarded and potentially very, very much financially. There isn't typically a balance of health and life and relationships and work. But I know a lot of people who went down that path and never left it because the financial security is the one thing that can basically be assured. I want to hear how you ended up deciding, I'm going to train people who make this kind of money.
It kind of got decided for me because I was very mediocre at what I was very good at my role, which was I was in the back office. So I was supporting the trading desk. So I was reconciling bank accounts and I was making sure that all the big wires were coming in and out. So every time we transacted, I was on the commodity trading side. So every time we transacted with another firm, it was either to financially transact or to actually physically transact product. And I was responsible for making sure that accounts were funded properly in all sorts of denominations of currency around the world. And we had, I think at the time, about 1,500 bank accounts that we were responsible for. And we were responsible for billions and billions of dollars leaving and going every single day. And it was just mindless monkey work. Like, it wasn't hard. It was just, if you know how to add and use Excel very minimally, like, you were fine. And then I got to a point where I was managing like 4 or 5 people and I get to hire my own team. And that was great because I made some good friends in the business. But I wanted to trade because I wanted to make trader money. Mm-hmm. Because I saw kids that were coming in at 25, 26, and within 6 months they were driving Aston Martins. And I'm like, holy shit, how is that even possible? Because at that age, I was attracted to that stuff. I wanted to live that like Wolf of Wall Street lifestyle because we were already kind of living it anyway. Mm-hmm. Like the commodity bell would ring at 2:30. It wasn't like the securities bell where we worked till 4:30. So we started at 5:30 or 6. We were done with our day by 2:30. So we were dicking around for the next 4 hours. Which back then meant, we were getting blow delivered from New York City to the office, and we were going to the bathroom. And we started drinking at 6, and we wouldn't stop until the next morning. And that's what I thought life was going to be like. And then the company went through a massive transitionary phase where we got bought by different banks, RBS, Societe Generale. And then finally, we just got told that, okay, you guys have 6 months left. Here's your severance package. Here's 30 grand. Serve out the rest of your time to close out all this business, and then you're laid off. So at that point, I was just like, I don't want to stay in this business because I know that I'm at a point now where I haven't had enough reps under my belt to be a trader, and if nobody's taken a shot at me yet, they probably won't. So my trajectory in the trading world was going to be down, and I didn't want to work support anymore. I had already been like the authority figure on the floor of like, what should you eat? How hard should you train? What are you doing in the gym? Because I was always that in shape guy at the office who, like, instead of getting the pastries during lunch that were free, by the way, I was getting the salads and the grilled chicken breasts on top of vegetables, and I was drinking the green tea, and I was eating the berries instead of all the sweets. And people just kept asking me questions, and it had been already alluded to me that I should be in that field. And then that's when right after I got laid off in 2012 in March, my ex at the time was working as a school teacher in Jersey, so I would just drive to her house. I bought the NASM book. I sat in a coffee shop while she was working. I studied the whole thing. I passed the test in like 2 months, and I was working at Equinox in Greenwich by that June.
Okay.
So from March to June, I was already I had spent that little chunk of time was unemployment, but then June 1st, I was already on the floor as a trainer. So I went from making like 140 and change a year to rolling up wet eucalyptus towels and handing them out on treadmills for $8 an hour.
Listen, that is, listen, for people listening to this who work in an environment like that, handing out wet eucalyptus towels to people on treadmills and ellipticals is the smile and dial of fitness.
Yep.
I imagine you got clients on ellipticals and treadmills, handing them towels.
I was the first person to institutionalize the idea of correcting people's form on the floor. It was told to us very vehemently to not do that because it would seem undermining and it would seem counterintuitive to the people that knew what they were doing. But I was like, well, they're just not doing it right. Why am I going to watch them either risk injury or be inefficient in training? So what I would do, because there was 2 shirts on the Equinox floor. You either had a blue shirt, which meant you were like not quite a trainer yet, or you had the black shirt, which meant you were a trainer. So I was still in the blue shirt telling people like, fix your lat pull down or fix your squat, or let me show you how to do that better. And before you knew it, within like 3 months, I went from having a blue shirt on to having a black shirt on to having like 15 or 20 clients recurring. And now I was within the top 10 out of 30 trainers there. And then I realized, I'm like, why am I doing this? Because they're charging 145 to 175 an hour, and I'm only getting 55 of it. These people all have home gyms. Why the fuck am I training them here when I can train them there for $100 an hour? They could be saving, I could be making more. Both people win. So that's what I did.
And most of the clients went with you.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't loyal to the gym.
Right.
Most of them were not. Right. They're loyal to you.
So interesting. I had Scott Schratweiser on the podcast. I don't know if you might not know who he is, but he was also a trainer at Equinox who was top 10% in the company worldwide. I trained at Equinox. Don Saladino, who came and sat in this chair, trained at Equinox. And all of us have the same experience. Eventually, I left. And it blows my mind because I still have friends who are on the leadership team at Equinox for the training department. And I've asked them, do you guys realize how much talent walks in and out your doors who, if you just had something valuable where their vision could fit inside of yours, we'd all probably still be there. Or we would be elsewhere, but we would be supporting. We would be saying, how do I come back and mentor these young guys and these young women so that you can have another crop coming through? Maybe we age out, right? But we're aging out as ambassadors instead of aging out as people saying, this is what I learned when I worked at Equinox. It's worth it to go through it, but nobody stays.
No, their EFTI program was actually very impressive.
Yeah.
I thought their EFTI program it was better than NASM.
Oh, way better.
We had 200 hours of education. Some of it was very physical therapy based. I mean, I knew correctives that I know physical therapists who don't know correctives as well as I did at one point. I mean, I was diagnosing injuries from people walking in with crooked shoulders and shifted hips. And it got to a point where I'm like they're giving this stuff away and then they're not paying you for it because it was all sales based. And like our location was the flagship location. So the guy that owned the company who had merged at that point with a hedge fund, I think he lived in Greenwich.
The related company.
So that was, yes.
Mm-hmm. I think he was in Greenwich and the Mandarin Oriental in Manhattan.
Okay. Yeah.
Steve Ross.
Yep. And I just remember, like, I was already so against the grain because, like, I wouldn't tuck my shirt in, I wouldn't wear the name tag, I didn't have my clipboard. And they're like, "Why aren't you making programs for your clients?" I'm like, "What fucking program is necessary for somebody who comes in 1 day a week?" Like, she doesn't remember. Like, I don't remember that if she did a tricep push down last week that she's going to do again this week because she's not training with enough frequency to me to warrant a program whatsoever. And I fought against all this stuff. And that's when I realized, I'm like, I do not know how to work for somebody else. I don't know how to do it. I'm not good at it. quite frankly, I was just better at it than they were. And I'm like, why am I just not doing this myself? Because I was building a rapport that they couldn't build. I was giving people an experience that they couldn't create. And that's when I realized it wasn't about training people or giving them results. It was about making sure that they enjoyed their experience, and they would just keep paying you because they liked the experience. Most of the time they weren't going to get results anyway. The results were just kind of a fun byproduct if they had occurred.
What's interesting to me about you so far is you've had so many moments in which you may or may not realize, but a lot of people would be terrified about what comes next. You were living in Russia. You moved to this new land with some of the language, but none of the friends and none of the social group. Then you go get a job in finance. Well, you go take out loans to go to college. Then you get a job in finance. You get told you're going to get laid off. You're like, all right, I'm going to become a trainer. Right? Like, it's not like, oh my God, my life is over. Where am I going to get another job like this again? What's my life going to be like? Job as a trainer. Then you're like, this isn't the place I'm going to do the training. You become a personal trainer going to people's homes in Greenwich, Connecticut. I imagine while you were doing that, you thought, this is it. This is how I'm going to make my living for a while. And now you're living in California and doing none of these things that you did before, technically.
No, I mean, when I left Connecticut in May of 21, I was probably making $2,000 to $3,000 a week cash, like all through COVID. The best year I ever had in my life. I think I cleared like 180 grand in cash, which obviously the government did not get because my clients were paying me with a check that I would cash, or they would pay me with cash. And the way that I would do it is, if this is a secret for anybody that doesn't want to keep money in the bank, have your clients pay you with a check, cash it, get a couple of good credit cards that have some Sky Miles on them, rack them up, know that you can pay them, and then go pay them with a banker's check. And that's a very easy money laundering tip.
What? I don't. I lost you so bad on that. What do you?
So let's say you fly JetBlue a lot. Get a JetBlue card.
Right.
Put all your stuff, gas, food, everything on the JetBlue card. And let's say your bill is $5,000 at the end of the month. Now you've made all that money. You have the money to pay it. You just don't pay it with a wire. You go to your bank. You take whatever cash you have sitting around, you get a bank check for how much you're going to send to JetBlue, and then you physically send them a bank check, pay off the credit card, and you're done.
I see. Okay.
And I was doing that every month.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can take the Russian police officer out of Russia, but you can't take the Russian police officer. You follow what I'm saying there? I lost my expression.
No, we're good at circumventing government rules.
Okay. That's wild. That's funny. So now, like, you move out to California, you had to leave all of that behind because it's a cash business. These people are not working with you online. First of all, why move to California? Were you like, you know what I want to do? I want to go to a place that is so fucking locked down, that is so strict, so expensive, where I can be neighbors with the person who's living on the sidewalk in front of my house. No offense to people who live in California. I just can't imagine living in California. And I tell this to our mutual friend, Shante Cofield, all the time. I'm like, hey, we're ready for you when you're ready to come back to the East Coast.
Yeah, but she's in LA. So LA and Southern California are completely different animals. So everything north of Orange County was awful. Like lockdown, gyms were closed. You couldn't even go on the beach.
Right.
But San Diego did not have any of that stuff going on. Nobody down here cares about politics. You don't even know if people are red or right. blue. Like, I mean, I've seen Confederate flags on the backs of trucks here.
Are you in San Diego?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I came here and there was no politics. There was nothing. And it was completely wide open the second I got here. But I didn't resume in-person training because people down here, it's such a saturated market with bad trainers who are charging $20 or $30 an hour because they're on their phone with 4 or 5 clients at a time.
Yep.
At the gym, just sitting on a box while these people are just doing whatever. That when I started quoting people 100 to 120 an hour, like I did back in Connecticut, they just laughed at me. They're like, yeah, cool. What are you doing? Like curing cancer? I'm like, no, that's how much a good trainer goes for in Connecticut. We're like, oh, you're not in Connecticut anymore. So like the highest I was able to really get was $80 an hour, which wasn't bad. But I wasn't about to recreate an entire business with no network whatsoever. So that's when I leaned into the online thing because I had already LLC'd my business back in 2019. And I just went heavy into like making helpful content, because all my content prior to like 2019 was just me with my shirt off trying to get laid.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just became like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not serving anybody. Nobody's getting anything out of this outside of just me just laying on the ground, like sweaty, being like, ooh, look at me. And then I just started realizing that like I have all this like stuff in my head. Let me just get it out because I'm frustrated because my clients are frustrated. Let's talk about it. And it just kind of took off, kind of like the Andrew Coates thing.
Mm-hmm. How did you get your first online client? Do you remember?
Yes. So she was actually one of my longest standing clients. She was spent 2.5 years with me. She had DM'd me a couple of times based on a couple of things that I posted. We chatted on the phone a few times. Then about a month and a half after, she started paying me $100 a month to coach her. And just basically all the stuff I learned at NCI, because I did NCI 1 and 2, and I did Precision 1. And then I had talked to a couple of people and did some sidebar stuff, like a gut health class and, you know, all the stuff that people do. So I was relatively well equipped to answer some questions that she didn't have answers to. And we started moving in the right direction. And then that kind of turned into me talking about that more and more. And then more people would DM me and reach out. I had no like lead capture. I had no MailChimp. I had no nothing. I had nothing. I had just zero. It was just either a DM and then it turned into a phone call, which turned into me sending a link for a payment. And that's how we did things.
So most of it was inbound. People were coming to you and asking questions.
Yeah.
I think
I would say more of that. I'd say that's still a massive part of my business. It's just people DMing me nurturing those relationships with answers to questions, and then eventually asking them if they're ready for a more formal relationship.
Well, I would love for you to expand on that a little bit, because I think that when most people hear you say most of it's inbound, what people picture is, oh, Aram gets DMs every day of people saying, hey, can I work with you? How much does it cost? When can we start? And you're shaking your head. No, I know that's not what it is. It's, but I think that a lot of people have the traffic that they don't think that they have. And they're like, where is Aram getting all of his leads from? Oh, they're just DMing him that they want to pay him money. That must be nice to have money fall out of the sky. What? That's not what happens. But so someone sends you a DM. Take us through the conversation, like a typical sequence of what somebody would say in that initial DM, and then how that ends up becoming a client.
So 9 out of 10 times, it's usually going to be in response to, they're either going to reshare one of the text posts that I made, or they'll see that like in between the legs poop post that I make every morning.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
In between the legs poop post.
You don't see these? Come on. I've labeled them my toilet talks. So every morning when I'm on the can, I take a picture. Elon Musk. Every morning I post, it looks like that. It's
I've seen those.
Box. Yeah. So that's me sitting on the toilet, and that's a picture of the ground in between my feet.
Got it. Okay.
And the funny thing is, it's gotten so popular now that people can tell when the floor tiles change, and they know that I'm either traveling or I'm not home. And they'll actually get to a point where people are like, are you okay? Like, I didn't post on Sunday, and I had like probably 10 people reach out asking me if I was okay.
That's cool.
Because they're so used to seeing that post every morning. Because I got used to the point, like it always comes from either a conversation I had the day before or a text message I got from a client that morning. But let's say somebody responds to that. Like today's post was about not letting the condition that you have, whether it's Hashimoto's or hypothyroid or a gut health problem, be your identity, that you do have the power to change the trajectory of your health. You just have to be more of an advocate for it. And then just DMs will start coming in, like either thumbs up or hearts, or like, hey, this really resonated with me. And then sometimes I'll say, I really appreciate you reaching out, or I'll say like, what's going on? Is everything okay? And then just a dialogue starts. It's just a very natural, because I'm curious, dialogue. Some people engage, and some people will literally rattle off 15 paragraphs worth of stuff, and then we'll send voice notes back and forth. And it's just me just literally just talking to people about their problems and learning what problems are out there and what exists. I don't offer them anything. I don't pitch them anything. I don't send them a link to my prices or to my offerings. I'm just literally finding out what's going on. And I've had people do this for months and months and months on end, to where I've never made any kind of offer. And then eventually, when they're ready, they usually ask like, oh, by the way, like, I know that you coach, what are your prices? And then I'll either shoot them a link or I'll say, let's hop on a call and I'll just explain to you how I do things.
So most of the time it's them asking you finally when they've gotten enough value that they're like, this is the guy I want to get value from.
Yeah, I think that's really what it comes down to, is just you give away a bunch of your energy and your time for free.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point they trust you enough with their finances to want to make that decision. And if they're going to make that decision, they feel more comfortable giving you the money than somebody else.
It's so similar for me. It's so similar. Yeah. The one nuanced difference is that I've had that happen enough times where somebody has come to me and been like, yeah, I'm working with this company and I don't think it's working. Like, this is what they're asking me to do and it's out of alignment with my values. And you always talk about values. That's what drew me to you. And I'm like, when did you enroll with that company? And they'll say like last month. I'm like, what the fuck, man? We've been talking for 4 months. Why didn't you enroll with us if this is what you're looking to do? And I've had people tell me I didn't realize I could. And so
I've had that.
Yeah. And so that had me now like, okay, well, I need to make sure everybody knows that we do this. And
people didn't know I was a coach for years.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And so there's this nuance in there where I'm letting people know, hey, I just want to make sure that you're aware. I'm happy to help you here for free as much as I can reasonably do. But if you're ever looking for formal coaching, I want to make sure that you know I also have that as something that we do, and I would love to talk to you about it should it be something you're curious about. In the meantime, the answer to your question is this.
Yeah.
Right? And that has people asking like, oh, what kind of coaching do you guys do? And that's when that kind of a conversation starts. The reason I wanted to parse that out with you is so many people like, where can I get more leads? Where can I get more leads? You're putting valuable content into the world that helps people. They're remarking this was helpful by giving you a thumbs up, by sharing it to their story, by liking it, by commenting on it. You're asking them, why was this helpful for you? Because that helps you learn how to create more valuable, helpful content for more people. Mm-hmm. They give you feedback. The interest is genuinely to learn. Why was this helpful? Because then you do it again. And sometimes people will say, by the way, I need help. And you just need to be able to see that language when they're not saying, by the way, I need help. So
it's literally that simple. I mean, people overcomplicate all of this stuff. And I think we live in I think our business or our industry has turned into such a sales-focused, sales-driven, product-driven thing that we've lost that personal connection. We've lost that ability to communicate and ask and dig and find out what people's problems are. Whereas like, if you got into this business to make a ton of money, like, yeah, you could probably make a ton of money. I know a lot of coaches who make 6 figures a month, but I got into this business to help a lot of people and to change a lot of minds and to change a lot of hearts about the information that's being distributed across the internet about nutrition and training. So when I get to see a light bulb go off on the internet or through a DM exchange, like, that's cool for me. Like, I like knowing that I've been the reason why that person's been able to make a change without ever formally working with them. And I've had plenty of people reach out and say, hey, I lost 20 pounds following your advice, or I've gotten my health back together. My mental health is better now because of the conversation we had 6 months ago. I've talked to disordered eaters who I have no credentialing to talk to disordered eaters about, just by helping them reframe their relationship with food. And I did more for them than an eating disorder clinic did for them in 6 months. Mm-hmm. And it was just because I was able to actually spend human time with them as opposed to throw them through some protocol that they had.
Yeah. Well,
and people appreciate that shit.
You know, one of the, I won't call it a mistake because that's the wrong word, but it can be perceived as that. Right? Is when I spoke at Coaching Con, and I'll say the same thing when I speak at the Real Coach Summit next year for you. And when I speak to people who enroll in our boot camps at Active Life, I tell everybody, you do not need somebody else, some course, some funnel, anything to be valuable. You already are. You don't need to buy anything. You are already valuable. What's critical is that you figure out what your value is, who wants it, how to distribute it. But if you're going to hire a coach or buy a program, Do it because you want it, not because someone has led you to believe you need it. The person who's led you to believe that you need it is the person who wants you to buy it from them, isn't going to tell you no if you shouldn't buy their program, but you're there with a credit card. And you want people who will tell you no if you're there to buy, but you shouldn't.
And that's definitely one thing I've picked up from you. I mean, I was kind of doing it before you and I had talked about a year ago, but there's definitely times where I'll talk to people on the phone and I just tell them, like, you're asking me for these 3-week transformations. You're asking me how fast you're going to lose weight. You're asking me, when you can be in a bikini by, and I'm like, I don't have those answers for you. I don't think you're going to be a good fit for how I work. I am very immersive. I'm very educational. I want you to learn and be autonomous at some point. I don't want you to be my client forever, but I also don't want you to be my client for 3 weeks because that's not going to do shit for you.
Right.
So I've definitely disqualified people before. Now, there was obviously a place of scarcity at first where I was just taking whatever I can get, charging as little as I could. But even now, like, I still over deliver and I undercharge.
Dude, we all need to go through that. Like, what would you? Yes, you over deliver. Yes, you undercharge. Yes, I've talked with you about your business, and yes, if there was one thing that I would tell people who are considering working with you, it would be tip, because Aram is going to charge you too little, and he's going to give you more than he promises. So yes, absolutely. One of the reasons I'm excited to speak at your event is because you're a person who I have 100% certainty is going to deliver unexpected value to everybody there, including the speakers. I have no doubt, man. No doubt. I see that in you every time that we talk and when I'm watching you from afar. The thing that oftentimes people need is not the macro count. It's not the what food should I eat. It's not the what food shouldn't I eat. It's the, hey, trust yourself. You know the answers to these questions. And that empowerment that you're able to give to somebody frees them to ask better questions, which frees you to respond with better questions, which frees them to elevate themselves and become somebody new, which is super cool.
Yeah, no, that's the best part of this job.
What you don't educate coaches. You do not have an arm of your business that is education and development for coaches, correct?
I've done it informally a couple different times. Like, I currently have one person that I kind of mentor, right. And I had one person a couple months ago that left, but it was more just being available for them to answer questions about anything they had, more like client case related versus business case related. Because at the end of the day, I will profess that I am not the resource on any of this stuff. Like,
so why the Real Coaches Summit? Like, it's an obvious thing where people with coaching education, it's something that we would do at Active Life. We haven't, but we would put on an event that's a loss leader. So I'm going to spend $200,000, $300,000 to run this event. I'm going to hope to get 150,000 to 200,000 of registrations to eat into my costs. And then I'm going to hope that of that 150 to 200,000 of registrants, I can sell them enough while they're on site that it makes up for the $100,000 loss we made in the event. That's a formula that many people use in their events, and it works.
Not mine.
Right. Well, you're not running the Real Coaches Summit to sell a coaching product. So why do it?
Because it's something I wish I had when I was becoming a coach. It's something that I wish I was able to go into a conference or a summit surrounded by really, really great minds in the space to help me build my confidence and my skill set to be a better coach, to deliver a better service to the end user. And there wasn't a lot of that around, because all of that stuff that I was going to was more of that type of a style, where it was more rah-rah motivational, go make more money, go get more clients, as opposed to go and become a tactically better coach and earn your money. And here's the resources you would need to do that in a very sales-free setting. And that's what I created.
How did you okay, let's take it back. You booked the Virgin Hotel in Las Vegas.
Yep.
You had to give them a deposit. You're on the hook for whatever the room costs, plus the PA system. And if you don't know, for people who never thrown an event, the PA system, it's like, a microphone, a TV, and some speakers, right? Like, what could that, a few $100? That is not what it is.
Well, I got that bill last year. I almost shit my pants.
I bet you did. I was
like, just under 20 grand.
Right. You're like, does this person move in with me for the year and manage my podcast? How does this work? It's like the job I want is to be a PA guy for people running events in Vegas or New York City or Boston or LA. Because if it costs me $20 to rent your freaking microphone and TV, and there's only one guy running it, how much are you paying him? Right?
It was insane.
The answer is not that much, so I don't actually want that job. But the point is, you took a ton of risk last year, and then again this year, to say I'm going to do this event without having a long tail profit stream from it. Why? Like, you have to give me more than I wanted something like this for myself.
I genuinely believe it's a valuable thing for anybody who decides to commit their time and their energy and their money to it. Like, I just feel like they get a lot out of it. Mm-hmm. And watching people's, you're a food guy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like when you cook something and somebody eats your food and there's a satisfaction from watching them eat it.
Dude, yes.
They're done. That's the best way I can explain it. Okay.
That's all.
People sit at my table, and I see the smiles on their faces, and I see the interaction that they're making. I see the event presenters sitting at the same tables as my attendees. I see them oohing and eyeing at the quality of the food and the quality of the relationships that they're building, and the fact that none of my presenters are leaving and going up to their room immediately. It's something that I've never seen before. I've been to 5 to 6 events for the last 5 years of my life, and I've never seen anything like that before. And I've been to some good ones, like, you know, like Jason's event was great, and Nick Lamb's Raise the Bar event was great, but they're just not the same as what I wanted. The spirit of mine is just completely more. It's for the person in the seat. Like, it is 100% tailored for the person that's in that seat. Like, I posted it today, and I was actually conflicted about whether I should post it or not, but I got the contract yesterday from the hotel, and there was the estimate on the price as it is right now, and it was $125,000. And I'm charging $548 for a ticket that's going to include 2 days of education, every single meal, and all the booze that you can drink for 2.5 days. I've never been to an event where that ticket price was that low, nor was it going to provide me that level of exposure and connectivity to the people that were actually going to be presenting either. Mm-hmm. Typically, you have to buy a VIP ticket, and then there's all these different barriers, and if it's not this level, it has to be that level. And I wanted to take all those barriers down and just offer just a one-shot deal. This is what it is. This is what you get. And if you don't see the value in it, I don't know how else to convince you that it's valuable.
Mm-hmm. Well, So you need 270 or so people to break even.
Yeah.
What's capacity?
Probably that. Close to that. Take 250.
Okay. So your best case scenario is that you walk out of this event with a few bucks in your pocket.
No, my best case scenario is I walk out of this event not being 25 in the hole like I was last year.
Okay.
That would be my dream. My dream would be that it was a 0 for 0, like, one-to-one relationship.
So this really for you is a pleasure thing.
Yeah, it's a servitude thing. It's what are the people in those seats going to get out of it, and is this thing going to live on to provide that same amount of value or more on a year-to-year basis? And then is that going to change the trajectory of the quality of the coaching industry?
I think that's really cool. How did you get speakers to come last year? This is your second year. How did you get speakers to come to an event that had never been done before, where you're like, yeah, I think people are going to enroll? I have no idea.
I just think that people have been watching me do what I do for so long that when I finally asked something of them, they didn't mind giving.
Okay.
Because I didn't pay for anybody to be on stage last year. I'm not paying anybody on stage to be there this year either. I pay for the rooms, and obviously you're getting fed also. But obviously it's a massive sales opportunity for anybody that speaks, because you do have upwards of however many people are going to be there to sell your curriculum to if you want to. But I just think that people believe in what I'm trying to do, like, because it is such a bullshit sales-free environment, and it is something that is more philanthropic in nature. It's not like any of the presenters need the money. The $4 or $5 grand that they would get to speak on stage isn't going to make or break their career. So it's like, I either go and I serve my industry the way that it gave to me, or I'm just not going to be a part of it, because there's plenty of people that want money to be on stage, and those are just not people that I'm going to ever invite to be on stage, because it's not. It'll dilute what I'm trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. What would you tell somebody right now who's listening? Because here's the thing for me, right? I believe in your event and I believe in you. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on the podcast is because I wanted people in my world to get to meet the real Aram Grigorian, without the filter of social media, even if that's exactly who you are. They don't get all of the back and forth, right? And I wanted this podcast to be different than talking about what you should eat, what you should tell you. Like it was meant to be a character study, not a tactical podcast. Somebody right now is thinking about events that they want to go to next year. I want them to consider coming to the Real Coaches Summit, and I want them to be able to qualify or disqualify themselves as somebody who should be there. What would you say to help them make that decision?
Well, it's interesting because I've definitely, when coaches repost my stuff on Instagram, like one of the things I do to try to raise awareness to the event, because sometimes people don't plug through your stories and sometimes people don't know about the event. And I'll just be like, hey, thanks for reposting. And are you coming to the event in March? I'm like, what event? And then I shoot them the details of it. And then I start to get whatever lines of opposition I get, which is either I don't know yet because it's in March and I don't plan that far ahead, which I think is silly, or I don't have the money, or I don't know if it's for me. And if it's for me question, I say very simply, are you somebody who wants to learn more about certain parts of training, nutrition, mindset work with clients or for yourself, and or a little bit of business as well? And I think that there's nobody that I know that wouldn't want to learn something about one of those topics.
So let me give you an objection to overcome right here.
Yep.
Okay. If I was the person on the other end of that, for me, I have no interest in nutrition coaching.
Okay.
And so what I might run into, and it would be a mistake, is, all right, well, then I'm not going to go because all the stuff that's about nutrition is not for me and I'm going to be sitting there like bored. How would you answer that so that somebody like me who should be there wouldn't take that road?
So there's going to be 7 speakers, or there's going to be 14 speakers a day in 2 different rooms, concurrently 2 per hour. So you're going to have an option to choose subject matter that's more applicable to you.
Awesome.
So if you don't want to learn about whatever somebody in room 1 is talking about, you can go in room 2. And if you don't want to learn about what people in room 2 are talking about, you can go get a cup of coffee and sit in the lounge and do some work and then come back when it is applicable to you.
So this just became a celebrity death match for me with whoever's in the other room while I'm speaking. Who do I got to go up against?
Let me see. I did start the schedule today already. On day 1, it's going to be, you're at the 3:05 time slot. So afternoon, 2 hours after lunch, which is not a bad time to do it.
Nope.
And it's going to be you and Joel Jameson butting up against each other.
Oh man, Joel's a stud. All right.
Yeah, but it's apples and oranges.
Yeah.
And that's why I did it that way, because you're not going to be talking about what Joel's talking about.
No, I'm not talking about recovery and performance, and no,
yep.
I'm not.
So that's why I kind of chose tactically, like, to pair people. Because last year I thought it was funny. Jade Tita, who's, a guy that I've been following since I entered into this business, was the final speaking slot paired with Jordan Syatt, and Jordan was only speaking one day. Mm-hmm. So he had the room. Like, he had all 150 people came to his speech, and Jade's room was empty. So what did Jade do? He went upstairs, he got a cocktail, came back down and sat in the back of the room and hung out and drank. Like, he's like, I already had my shot to speak a couple times before this. Mm-hmm. Jordan's one day. Well, I'm going to support Jordan. So right. It's just there's no ego. And the people that didn't have a problem with how many people they had in the room, and if they had something to say to me afterwards, I said, hey, it's not my fault that they didn't want to see you.
No.
At the end of the day, I can't guarantee who's going to be in your room or not going to be in your room. I mean, last year it was 3 people at a time, so it was a bit more, right. It was a bit trickier, but this year I reduced it to 2 with longer speaking slots. So it was a little bit more time for Q&A. People can get their point across a bit better. And there's just a lot less decision fatigue when you either have A or B versus A, B, and C.
Aram, if somebody wants to find out more about you or more about the event, where should they go?
So most of my stuff, like personally, what I do is all on my Instagram page, which is the number 4 weeks, the number 2 the beach, at 4 weeks to the beach on Instagram. And then the event website is realcoachessummit2023.com. Yes, it's not 2020. I bought the domain name, and guess I'm just going to hang on to it forever now. So I can't change it. unfortunately, and I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So it's going to be realcoachessummit2023.com forever. And that's where you can buy tickets. That's where you can see the lineup of speakers. I mean, I'm posting about it almost every day to try to raise awareness for it. And then most of the presenters are doing some type of an awareness thing at least once a week about their role in presenting as well. I think by the beginning of next week, we'll have discounted hotel room rates available on the website also. I think they're going to range from $109 to $129 a night, which I think for Vegas is pretty damn cheap.
Yeah.
And like I said, the pre-sale is going on until September 2nd. If you buy pre-sale up until the 3rd of August, you'll also get a couple of goodies from all the people presenting. I know, like you could talk about what you're offering is your freebie, which I thought was awesome. But every presenter is offering a freebie if you buy before August 3rd, which will be lumped into your pre-sale purchase. And then after that, you still have another month of pre-sale before that.
Did we give the pricing tools? Is that what we gave?
Yes. Yeah.
So, for us, it's, the biggest question that we get from people is, what should I be charging for my stuff? And most of the stuff that I see out there is so arbitrary. What's your value? Well, I don't know. If I was kidnapped by a cartel, I'd hope that whatever they hold as ransom is my value, right? Like someone's going to pay it, right? So we built pricing tools that help you figure out what people will want to pay for a top tier service in the market where you are, based on the zip code in which you reside. So we're giving that to everybody who enrolls in the Real Coaches Summit before the pre-sale's over.
Yeah, I thought that was an awesome thing. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, there's free months of programming being handed out. There's free group coaching calls being handed out. There's also, everybody that's contributed some part of their practice to this is going to be valuable. I don't know how to even put a number on how valuable it is. I keep saying it's over $2,000 worth, just because I think that's probably a reasonable number, but it's got to be north of that. So
I promise there are things I'm going to speak about while I'm there that I will tell people in small groups at tables that I will speak about from the stage that are worth 6 figures a year for the people who will take the advice.
Right. But again, it's like anything else. You give somebody a good nutrition training program that can be worth thousands or whatever else, and you don't actually apply it, it's worth zero.
But it's worth what it's worth. They get the value that they put in.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the hard part about this thing is like, people don't want to think that far ahead because like, oh, well, what if I'm busy in March? Well, it's, if you're one of these people that's going to go to the party only contingent upon who's there, then you're not going to get the value of the party. Mm-hmm. Just show up and enjoy the experience and get what you're going to get out of it. Because if it's hinging on if there's something better to do, I promise you there is. And 2 weeks before my event is Raise the Bar, and a month after my event is Coaching Con. So I'm sandwiched in between two monstrous events with two of the biggest hitters in our field. And it doesn't scare me because I have my crowd and they have theirs. And we could all swim in the same pool together. And I think if you go to all 3 events, you might be done for the year and your business is going to blow up because of it, probably.
Provided you do the things.
Yeah, exactly.
Aram,
mine's a little bit more tactical in nature with nutrition, training, cardiovascular implementation. So that stuff is going to be more like coaching based, but it's also really nice for the end user because I do have a lot of lay people that will be coming that aren't coaches. So, I would say it's probably about 30 to 35% business oriented. And I would say it's about 60 to 65% more tactical. Like, how do I actually apply nutrition, training, and cardiovascular modalities to help end users with their fat loss outcomes?
I love it. Aram, thank you for coming on the show today, man. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. It feels like a conversation with a friend, which is how I always want it to go.
I appreciate it, man. I'm very excited to spend at least 2.5 full days with you and eat and drink and be merry with a bunch of people that I respect. So I can't thank you enough for being a part of it. And I think people are going to be wowed from what they hear. And that's exactly why you're going to be on that stage.
That's my job. All right. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, sir.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Active Life podcast. Please remember, give us a hand, rate it, review it wherever you listen to shows. We are on a mission to humanize the healthcare industry by professionalizing the fitness industry to empower the individual to live a life unlimited by the way that their body looks, feels, or performs. If you are inspired by that mission and want to jump on the wagon, find us anywhere. Active Life Professional on Instagram, Active Life RX on Instagram. Come to me personally at Dr. Sean Pastuch. We want to welcome you onto the train. We want you to be a part of the mission. We want to offer you the opportunity to pursue this right alongside us. We're inspired by your effort, and we hope to help you in your journey. Turn pro.